Orphan boy helps disabled alien elder cross a river. The alien tribe's response changed his life. The sun hung low over the horizon, casting long shadows across the dusty path leading to the river. Jacob wiped sweat from his brow with a calloused hand, adjusting the empty water jug on his shoulder. At 14, his frame was lean but strong, hardened by years of survival on the fringes of civilization. The border village of Meridian was the last human outpost before the vast territories claimed by the Navari tribes began. Most humans avoided these lands, but Jacob had nowhere else to go. Orphaned at 9 when raiders struck his family's homestead, he learned to survive by his wits and strength alone. "Another day, another struggle," he muttered, kicking a stone from his path. The river came into view, its waters rushing with unusual force after the recent rains. Jacob approached his usual spot, a small inlet where the current slowed enough to safely fill his jug. That's when he noticed the figure. Hunched on a boulder near the water's edge sat an elderly Navari, one leg awkwardly extended. The alien's blue skin seemed dull in the fading light, and pain etched lines around his amber eyes. A wooden staff carved with spiral patterns lay across his lap. Jacob hesitated. Relations between humans and Navari were tense at best, hostile at worst. The bridge crossing, controlled by Navari outlaws who demanded steep tolls, stood as testament to that fact. Most humans would have turned away, pretending not to see. But something in the elder's dignified suffering struck Jacob. He approached cautiously, noting the makeshift bandage wrapped around the alien's leg. "You're a long way from your people," Jacob said, stopping a respectful distance away. The elder's head turned, amber eyes assessing the human boy. "As are you." His voice was deep with the distinctive melodic accent of the Navari. "Need to get across?" Jacob asked, nodding toward the river. The elder's gaze followed Jacob's. "My village lies beyond those trees. I was gathering medicinal roots when my old injury flared. The current," he gestured at the rushing water, "it has grown too strong for my weakened state." Jacob looked at the surging river, then back at the elder. The sensible choice was to fill his jug and leave. This wasn't his problem. The Navari had their own people. "Let me help you cross the river, sir," Jacob heard himself say. "No one survives here alone." The elder studied him silently, then nodded. "I am Thorin." "Jacob." With careful movements, Jacob helped Thorin to his feet. The alien was surprisingly light despite his tall frame, and Jacob supported him as they approached the water's edge. "We'll need to stay in the shadows of the dam," Jacob explained, pointing upstream where a small human-built structure partially regulated the flow. "There's a path of stones there, hidden just beneath the surface. Step exactly where I step." Together they entered the cold water, Jacob bearing much of the elder's weight. The current pulled at their legs, threatening to topple them with each step. "Why does a human boy help a Navari elder?" Thorin asked as they paused on a larger stone. Jacob concentrated on finding the next foothold. "Same reason anyone helps anyone, I guess. Because someone should." They continued in silence, each step precarious. Halfway across, Thorin slipped, nearly pulling them both under. Jacob's quick reflexes saved them, his arm locking around the elder's waist. "Almost there," Jacob encouraged, his muscles burning with effort. When they finally reached the opposite bank, both were soaked and breathing hard. Jacob helped Thorin to a fallen log where the alien could rest. "You have my gratitude, Jacob of Meridian," Thorin said formally. "Such kindness is unexpected." Jacob shrugged. "Just did what needed doing." Thorin reached into his robe and withdrew a small object that gleamed in the dying light. "Take this. It may serve you well someday." Before Jacob could protest, the elder pressed a smooth stone into his palm. It was warm to the touch and seemed to pulse with a faint inner light. "It's a heart stone," Thorin explained. "Among my people, it symbolizes a debt of honor." Jacob closed his fingers around it. "Thank you, but no debt is necessary." Thorin smiled, revealing teeth that gleamed like polished ivory. "Honor is always necessary, young one. Remember that." With surprising agility for one so injured, he rose and limped toward the forest. "Until we meet again?" Jacob watched until the elder disappeared among the trees, then turned back to the river. His water jug still waited on the opposite shore. With a sigh, he waded back into the cold current, the heartstone secure in his pocket. He couldn't have known that by morning, his simple act of kindness would upend his entire existence. Jacob awoke to persistent knocking at his door. Sunlight streamed through the cracks in his ramshackle hut's walls, indicating he'd overslept. Groggily, he pulled on his shirt and stumbled to the entrance. "Coming," he mumbled, rubbing sleep from his eyes. "If it's about the water tax again, I told Magistrate Holt I'd—" The words died in his throat as he swung the door open. Standing before him was not the village tax collector, but a delegation of blue-skinned Navari. At their center stood Thorin, leaning less heavily on his staff than the previous evening. The elder's amber eyes crinkled with amusement at Jacob's stunned expression. "Good morning, Jacob of Meridian," Thorin said formally. "I hope we do not disturb your rest." Jacob blinked, suddenly acutely aware of his disheveled appearance and the humble state of his dwelling. Behind Thorin stood 6 other Navari, all watching him with curious expressions. "No, I mean not at all," Jacob stammered. "I just wasn't expecting visitors." Thorin finished for him. "It is customary among our people to honor debts promptly." One of the Navari stepped forward, a female, with striking features that made Jacob's breath catch. Her skin was a lighter shade of blue than Thorin's, almost luminescent in the morning light. Silver hair cascaded down her back, adorned with small iridescent beads that caught the sunlight. Her eyes, the same striking blue as the summer sky, regarded him with undisguised curiosity. "This is my granddaughter, Lizana," Thorin introduced her. "She insisted on thanking you personally." Lizana stepped closer, and Jacob caught a subtle scent like night-blooming flowers. Her elegant dress flowed around her slender form, revealing glimpses of blue skin that made his heart race unexpectedly. "Your kindness to my grandfather has honored our family," she said, her voice melodic. "Few humans would have done what you did." Jacob felt heat rising to his cheeks. Anyone would have helped. "No," she said, a smile playing at her lips. "They would not. That is why you are different." Their eyes locked, and Jacob felt something electric pass between them. Lysana seemed to feel it too. Her eyes widened slightly, and the blue of her cheeks darkened in what Jacob realized must be the Navari equivalent of a blush. Thorin cleared his throat, breaking the moment. "The Council of Elders has extended an invitation. We would be honored if you would visit our healing springs. The waters there might ease the burden of your hard life." Jacob hesitated. No human had been invited to Navari territory in living memory, at least not as a guest. I'm not sure if I should," he said cautiously. Lizana's expression fell slightly. "Do we frighten you?" "No," Jacob answered honestly, "but your people and mine don't exactly get along." "Perhaps it is time that changed," Thorin suggested, "starting with those willing to see beyond old prejudices." Jacob looked at the elder, then at Lizana, whose hopeful expression made something stir within him. "When would we go?" "Now, if you are willing," Thorin replied, "the journey is not long, and you would return by nightfall." Jacob glanced back at his sparse dwelling. There was nothing keeping him here. No family waiting for his return, no obligations he couldn't postpone. And something in Lizana's gaze pulled at him like a physical force. "All right," he decided. "Let me grab my things." Minutes later, they were walking along a hidden trail through the forest. Jacob found himself walking beside Lizana, while Thorin led the group. "Your grandfather seems much improved today," Jacob observed. "The night dew helps with his condition," Lizana explained, "and perhaps the inspiration of your kindness lent him strength." Jacob felt that warmth in his cheeks again. "I'm just glad he made it home safely." "You are modest," she said, studying him with those intense blue eyes. "It is appealing." Their hands brushed accidentally as they walked, sending an unexpected jolt through Jacob's body. Lysana didn't pull away immediately, allowing their fingers to remain in contact for a heartbeat longer than necessary. "Tell me," she said softly, "do all human males have eyes the color of forest earth?" Jacob swallowed. "No, eyes come in different colors. Brown like mine, blue like yours, green, gray." "I find yours fascinating," she admitted. "They remind me of the rich soil where the sweetest roots grow." The path narrowed, forcing them to walk closer together. Jacob was acutely aware of her presence, the subtle warmth radiating from her body, the graceful way she moved. "Is it true," Lysana asked, her voice dropping to a near whisper, "that humans form pair bonds based on emotion rather than practical compatibility?" "You mean love?" Jacob asked. "Yes, mostly. Don't, Navari?" She tilted her head. "We consider compatibility of spirit first, then allow feelings to grow. But I have always wondered about the human way. It seems impulsive, passionate." The way she said passionate made Jacob's heart skip a beat. "Sometimes impulsive isn't bad," he found himself saying. Lysana's lips curved into a smile that transformed her already beautiful face. "Perhaps you will teach me more about human impulsiveness during your stay?" Before Jacob could respond, Thorin called from ahead, "We approach the springs." As they emerged from the forest into a clearing, Jacob gasped. Before them lay a series of terraced pools, steaming gently in the morning air. The water shimmered with an otherworldly blue-green light. "Welcome," Thorin announced, "to the heart of Navari." Lysana's hand found Jacob's, her cool fingers intertwining with his warm ones. "The waters heal the body," she murmured, "but sometimes it is the spirit that needs healing most." Jacob looked down at their joined hands, then back to her eyes, understanding that his life had irrevocably changed. The healing springs of the Navari were unlike anything Jacob had ever experienced. The terraced pools descended in a natural formation, each glowing with an ethereal blue-green luminescence that pulsed like a heartbeat. Steam rose in delicate tendrils, carrying a mineral scent that cleared his mind and invigorated his senses. "These waters flow from the planet's core," Thorin explained as they approached. "They carry elements found nowhere else on our world." Jacob noticed the reverence with which the Navari regarded the springs. Several elders were already bathing in the lower pools, their blue skin glistening with moisture. "The highest pool is reserved for the royal lineage," Lysana whispered, still holding Jacob's hand. "The one below it is for honored guests." "Royal lineage?" Jacob questioned, glancing at her with new understanding. "Are you—" "My grandfather is High Elder Thorin, keeper of the sacred springs and advisor to Chief Kalen," she explained, a hint of pride in her voice. "Our family has guided the Navari for 7 generations." This revelation made Jacob suddenly self-conscious. "I'm just an orphan from Meridian. I don't belong in a place of honor." Lysana's fingers tightened around his. "You belong where fate has led you, Jacob of Meridian." Thorin approached, carrying ceremonial robes. "Before you enter the waters, there is something you should know." His amber eyes held a serious expression. "Your arrival was anticipated." "Anticipated?" Jacob repeated, confused. Thorin nodded solemnly. "For generations our seers have spoken of a prophecy that when the river rages strongest, a human youth with earth in his eyes would aid a fallen elder and bridge the divide between our peoples." Jacob felt a chill despite the warm air. "That's quite a coincidence." "There are no coincidences in the flow of fate," Thorin replied. "The heartstone I gave you, it has been passed down through my family for centuries, waiting for the one foretold." Jacob reached into his pocket, feeling the smooth stone pulse warmly against his fingers. "This is a royal heirloom." "It is the key of alignment," Thorin confirmed. "It responds only to those destined to unite our worlds." Lysana's expression was a mixture of awe and something more personal, more intense. "The prophecy also speaks of bonds formed that transcend blood and species." The way she said bonds made Jacob's pulse quicken. Their eyes met, and the connection between them seemed to strengthen, almost tangible in the steam-filled air. "Not all welcome this prophecy," Thorin warned, his voice lowering. "The Krell faction believes purity of bloodlines must be maintained. They will see your presence, and particularly any closeness with Lysana, as a threat to our way of life." "I don't want to cause trouble," Jacob said, though he couldn't bring himself to release Lysana's hand. "Trouble finds those who matter to history," Thorin replied with a knowing smile. "Now prepare yourself for the waters. They will reveal truths even you do not know about yourself." Durant moved away to speak with the other elders, leaving Jacob and Lysana alone by the guest pool. Are you afraid, Lysana asked softly, of prophecies and of politics? A little, Jacob admitted. Of this? He squeezed her hand gently. Not at all. Her lips curved into a smile that made his heart race. The springs require bare skin to work their healing, she explained, her voice taking on a teasing quality. Does that make you uncomfortable? Jacob swallowed hard. Humans have different customs about nudity. How fascinating, Lysana murmured, stepping closer until he could feel the coolness radiating from her blue skin. Perhaps we should explore these cultural differences more thoroughly. She reached up, tracing a finger along his jawline. The simple touch sent electricity through his body. Your skin flushes with heat, she observed. Is that pleasure or embarrassment? Both, Jacob managed to say. Lysana laughed, a sound like silver bells. I shall give you privacy to change. But Jacob, her eyes held his with an intensity that made his knees weak. I hope someday you will trust me enough to share all your human customs with me. After she glided away, Jacob changed into the ceremonial robe, a simple garment designed to be removed before entering the waters. When he approached the guest pool, he found Lysana already submerged to her shoulders, her silver hair floating around her like moonlight on water. Join me, she invited, her blue eyes luminous in the glow of the pool. Jacob slipped into the water, keeping a respectful distance. The liquid felt like silk against his skin, instantly soothing aches he hadn't even realized he carried. As he settled, the heartstone in the pocket of his discarded robe began to glow brightly, casting rays of light that danced across the surface of the pool. It recognizes you, Lysana whispered, moving closer, just as I recognized something special in you from the moment I saw you. The water between them seemed charged with energy. Jacob felt drawn to her, not just physically, but as if their spirits were reaching for each other across some cosmic divide. There are those watching who disapprove, she whispered, nodding subtly toward a group of stern-faced Navari observing from a distance. The Krell faction sees human-Navari relations as sacrilege. And what do you see? Jacob asked, his voice husky with emotion. Lysana's hand found his beneath the water. I see possibilities that make my heart race in ways I never imagined. Her cool fingers intertwined with his. Do you feel it too? This connection between us? Yes, Jacob answered honestly. From the moment you stepped forward this morning, the water around them began to glow more intensely, responding to their emotions. Across the springs, Thorin watched with a mixture of hope and concern, while the Krell faction's glares intensified. My grandfather believes our meeting will change everything, Lysana said softly. I'm beginning to believe he's right. The tranquil atmosphere of the springs shattered as a horn blast echoed across the terraced pools. Navari scattered from the water, reaching for ceremonial robes. Thorin's expression darkened as he hurried toward Jacob and Lysana. Chief Kalen returns, he announced, his amber eyes troubled, earlier than expected. Jacob felt Lysana tense beside him. My father, she explained, quickly moving to exit the pool. He's been negotiating boundaries with the northern tribes. As Jacob climbed out and donned his robe, a procession appeared at the edge of the clearing. At its center strode a commanding figure whose presence demanded attention. Chief Kalen was taller than most Navari, his blue skin darker and marked with intricate patterns that Jacob realized must signify rank. His silver hair was pulled back severely, and his eyes, the same striking blue as Lysana's, swept over the springs with sharp authority. Those eyes found Jacob immediately, narrowing with unmistakable displeasure. Father, Lysana stepped forward, chin raised. We welcome your return. Daughter, Kalen acknowledged, his gaze never leaving Jacob. I find a human in our sacred waters. Explain. Before Lysana could answer, Thorin moved between them. The prophecy, Kalen. This is the one. The chief's expression hardened. Prophecies are for elders and dreamers, Thorin. I deal in realities, like the northern tribes threatening our borders because they believe we've grown soft toward humans. This human saved my life, Thorin countered, and the Heartstone responds to him. At the mention of the stone, Jacob felt it pulse in his discarded clothes. To his astonishment, it rose from the fabric, hovering in the air before floating toward him. The assembled Navari gasped as it came to rest in his palm, glowing with intensity that cast his shadow long across the water. "Impossible," breathed one of Kalen's advisors. "The stone chooses," Thorin said firmly. "It has not done so in 7 generations." Kalen's authoritative demeanor faltered momentarily. "The Guardian's mark," he murmured, then recovered his composure. "This changes nothing. Human or not, no outsider can be guardian of the springs." "The waters and the stone disagree," Thorin replied calmly. From the edge of the gathering, a tall, lean Navari stepped forward. His blue skin was almost navy, his eyes cold as winter frost. "This is blasphemy," he spat. "A human cannot protect our most sacred site. The prophecy speaks of a bridge between worlds, not a human usurper." "Mind your tone, Valen," Kalen warned. "You speak to your chief." "I speak for the Krell faction," Valen replied, "and we will not stand by while our traditions are corrupted by human influence." Jacob felt all eyes upon him, judging, assessing. The weight of their scrutiny made him want to flee, but Lizana's presence beside him gave him courage. "I don't seek to usurp anything," Jacob said, his voice steadier than he expected. "I only help someone who needed it." "A simple act of kindness," Thorin added, "the very foundation of the Guardian's role." Kalen studied Jacob with penetrating intensity. "Simple acts often have complex consequences, boy. Do you understand what this means? The Guardian protects not just the springs, but the heart of Navarra culture." "I don't," Jacob admitted honestly, "but I'm willing to learn." Something in his straightforward response seemed to resonate with the chief. Kalen's expression softened marginally. "There must be a test," he declared finally. "The ceremony of revelation. If the springs truly choose this human, they will show us." Valen's face contorted with anger. "Chief Kalen, this is my decision." Kalen cut him off. "The ceremony will be held at moonrise." As the gathering dispersed to prepare, Lizana pulled Jacob aside to a secluded alcove near the lowest pool. "The ceremony of revelation is sacred," she explained urgently. "The springs will show your true nature to all gathered." "That sounds invasive," Jacob said uneasily. Lizana's lips quirked into a smile. "It is. But it's also beautiful." Her hand found his, her cool fingers interlacing with his warm ones. "I've seen your true nature already, Jacob. You have nothing to fear." Her closeness made his heart race. The ceremonial robe she wore clung to her damp skin, outlining her slender form in ways that made it difficult for him to focus on her words. "Your father doesn't seem thrilled about any of this," Jacob noted, trying to distract himself. "He's protective of me, of our people." Her free hand came up to touch his face. But he's fair. If the springs choose you, he will accept it." "And if they don't?" Her eyes darkened. "The Krell faction will demand your immediate expulsion, or worse." Jacob swallowed hard. "No pressure, then." Lizana laughed softly, the sound easing his tension. "You humans and your humor in the face of danger. It's, captivating." She leaned closer, her breath cool against his cheek. "Before the ceremony, there's something you should know. The springs respond to emotion, to connection. The stronger the bond between two beings, the more powerfully the waters react." Jacob's pulse quickened as he understood her meaning. "Are you suggesting—" "I'm suggesting," she whispered, her lips now tantalizingly close to his, "that we ensure the springs have something significant to respond to." Their lips met, cool against warm, alien yet perfectly matched. Jacob felt as though electricity coursed through him, every nerve ending alive with sensation. The heartstone in his palm flared brilliantly between them, its light pulsing in rhythm with their accelerating heartbeats. When they finally parted, breathless, Lizana's blue skin had darkened with emotion, her eyes luminous with desire. "I've never felt anything like that," she admitted. "Is it always so intense for humans?" "No," Jacob answered truthfully. "That was different." A knowing smile curved her lips. "The ceremony isn't for ours yet. Perhaps we should explore these differences more thoroughly." Jacob glanced toward where the Navari were preparing. "Won't someone see us?" "Let them," she replied with unexpected boldness. "Let them see that the prophecy of bonds beyond blood is fulfilled in us." As she led him deeper into the secluded alcove, Jacob realized that whatever happened at the ceremony, his life had already changed irrevocably, and he wouldn't have it any other way. Moonrise approached with ceremonial solemnity. Navari gathered around the highest pool, forming concentric circles with the royal family and elders closest to the water. Jacob stood nervously at the edge, dressed in ceremonial garb. A silver-blue robe embroidered with symbols he couldn't decipher. The heartstone pulsed warmly in his palm, its glow intensifying as the twin moons of this world climbed higher. His time with Lizana in the secluded alcove had left him both exhilarated and terrified. Their connection had transcended physical pleasure, becoming something that seemed to resonate with the very springs themselves. When they had finally emerged, disheveled and flushed, Thorin had merely nodded knowingly, while several Krell faction members had turned away in disgust. Now Lizana stood beside her father, her eyes finding Jacob's across the gathering. The subtle smile she offered him conveyed both reassurance and something more intimate, a shared secret that made his heart race anew. Chief Kalen raised his hands and silence fell over the assembly. Since time immemorial, the springs of revelation have guided the Navari, he intoned. Tonight, they will judge whether a human can truly be the guardian foretold. Thorin stepped forward, leaning on his staff. The waters show truth beyond deception, history beyond memory. Let them speak. At his signal, Jacob stepped to the edge of the highest pool, a privilege normally reserved for royalty. The water rippled expectantly, its glow intensifying as he approached. "Enter the pool," Thorin instructed. "Submerge completely with the Heartstone." Jacob took a deep breath and stepped into the water. It felt different from the lower pool, more viscous, almost alive against his skin. He waded to the center where the water reached his chest, then looked back at Lizana one last time before submerging himself completely. Underwater, the world transformed. The liquid glowed around him, not with light but with consciousness. Images flashed before his eyes, not just his memories, but older ones, ancient ones that couldn't possibly be his own. He saw humans and Navari together, not as strangers, but as allies. He witnessed ceremonies where blue and pink hands clasped in friendship, saw children of both species playing together without fear or prejudice. Then came darker visions, a terrible conflict, betrayal, separation. The river that now divided their peoples had once been a meeting place, not a boundary. Most startling of all, he saw a human man and a Navari woman standing together before these very springs. Their hands joined as they faced hostile crowds from both sides. The woman's silver hair and proud bearing reminded him powerfully of Lysana, while the man's determined stance and earth-brown eyes mirrored his own. The Heartstone burned in his palm, no longer just glowing but projecting these images above the water's surface for all to see. Jacob heard gasps from the assembled Navari as their forgotten history played out before them. Then the vision shifted abruptly to the present, or perhaps the near future. He saw scaled reptilian creatures advancing through the forest toward the springs, weapons drawn. Their eyes glowed with malevolent red light, their movements precise and predatory. The Saurians, ancient enemies of both humans and Navari, thought to have retreated beyond the northern mountains generations ago. Jacob burst from the water, gasping for air. "The Saurians are coming," he shouted. "They march on the springs!" Chaos erupted among the gathered Navari. Chief Kalen raised his hands for silence. "What trickery is this?" Valen demanded. "He seeks to distract us from his failure." "No trickery," Thorin countered. "The springs have spoken through him." "Did you not see the visions?" Kalen's expression was grave. "I saw, both past and present." He turned to Jacob. "The waters have shown us what was forgotten, that humans and Navari once lived as one people before the Great Sundering. And those two," Jacob said, still catching his breath, "the human man and Navari woman who stood together against everyone. Joran and Lyria," Thorin supplied, "the first guardian and his mate. Their bloodlines were thought lost in the conflicts that followed." Lizana stepped forward, her eyes wide. "But they weren't lost, were they? Somehow their bloodlines continued, separated by the river but never truly broken." "Until now," Thorin said, looking meaningfully between Jacob and Lizana. "The springs recognized the rejoining of what was sundered." Valen scoffed. "Pretty stories and convenient prophecies won't protect us from Saurian raiders if they truly approach." They do approach, Jacob insisted. I saw them clearly. At least 30 warriors, heavily armed. They'll be here by dawn. Kalen studied Jacob with new respect. If what you say is true, we have little time to prepare. The springs must be defended at all costs. Then let me help, Jacob offered. I may be human, but I've dealt with raiders before. And if what the springs showed is true, I have as much right to defend this place as any of you. A murmur ran through the crowd, some supportive, others doubtful. Kalen raised his hand for silence again. The ceremony has shown us two truths, he declared. First, that our peoples share a history we had forgotten. Second, that a common enemy approaches. He turned to Jacob. The springs have accepted you, human. Now we shall see if you are worthy of that acceptance. Lizana moved to Jacob's side, taking his hand openly before the assembly. We will face this threat together, as our ancestors once did. The Heartstone pulsed between their joined hands, its light spreading outward to illuminate the entire gathering. In that moment, Jacob felt a connection not just to Lizana, but to something larger, a destiny that had been set in motion the moment he'd helped an old man cross a river. Prepare for battle, Kalen ordered. All able warriors to the northern perimeter, elders and children to the inner sanctum. He fixed Jacob with a penetrating stare. You, guardian candidate, will stand with me. As the assembly dispersed with urgent purpose, Lizana squeezed Jacob's hand. My ancestors called to yours across centuries, she whispered, and you answered. I just helped an old man cross a river, Jacob replied with a small smile. I had no idea it would lead to all this. The greatest journeys often begin with the smallest steps, Thorin said, approaching them. Now we must prepare for what comes next. The Saurians covet the healing powers of the springs. They will not be easily turned away. Jacob nodded, the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. Then we better make sure they regret coming here. Dawn approached with ominous silence. The Navari village had transformed overnight into a fortified encampment, with warriors positioned strategically around the springs. Jacob stood with Chief Callan and his commanders at the northern perimeter, studying the forest edge where the Saurians would emerge. They'll attack from multiple directions, Jacob explained, drawing a rough map in the dirt. Raiders always do. It divides defenders and creates panic. Kalen nodded appreciatively. You speak from experience. My village was raided 3 times before I was 12, Jacob replied grimly. I learned to spot the patterns. The Heartstone pulsed against his chest where he now wore it on a cord. Since the ceremony, its connection to him had strengthened. When he closed his eyes and concentrated, he could sense the spring's energy flowing through the stone into him, heightening his awareness of the surrounding area. Something's wrong, he murmured, eyes still closed. The Saurians should be visible by now, but I can't sense them where I saw them in the vision. Lizana, who had insisted on joining the Defense Council despite her father's objections, placed her hand over the Heartstone. The moment their skin connected, the stone's glow intensified dramatically. They've changed course, she gasped. They're approaching from the east now. How could they know we were prepared for a northern attack? Jacob's eyes snapped open. Someone told them. Kalen's expression darkened. A traitor among us? It's the only explanation, Jacob confirmed. The vision showed their original plan. Someone warned them we were ready. Valen, who had been standing silently at the edge of the group, stepped forward. Convenient accusations from the human. Perhaps the springs simply showed false visions. The springs don't lie, Thorin countered, but people do. Jacob studied Valen carefully. The Navari's hostility seemed genuine rather than guilty, but someone in this circle had betrayed them. His gaze swept over the commanders, looking for signs of deception. Then he noticed something odd, a small device partially concealed in Commander Marin's collar, blinking with a faint red light. Chief Kalen, Jacob said casually, may I speak with you privately for a moment? About the Heartstone's capabilities? Kalen nodded and they stepped away from the group. Once out of earshot, Jacob whispered urgently, Commander Marin is wearing a transmitter. It's how the Saurians know our plans. Kalen's eyes widened. Marin has served me for 15 cycles. Why would he? I don't know, but we can use this, Jacob replied. Feed him false information while we prepare for the real attack. The chief studied Jacob with newfound respect. You have a tactical mind, human. Jacob, he corrected with a small smile. My name is Jacob. They returned to the group, where Kalen smoothly issued new orders, sending most forces to reinforce the eastern perimeter, while quietly instructing his most trusted warriors to prepare for the actual threat. As the commanders dispersed, Lysana pulled Jacob aside. What did you tell my father? Jacob explained about Marin's betrayal. Lysana's expression hardened with determination. We need to reach the central spring, she said. If you can truly channel its power through the Heartstone, it could give us an advantage the Saurians won't expect. They slipped away to the highest pool, now eerily deserted as all able warriors had moved to defensive positions. The water glowed with unusual intensity, as if responding to the impending threat. What exactly am I supposed to do? Jacob asked, removing the Heartstone from around his neck. Our legends say the Guardian could use the stone to extend the spring's protection beyond their boundaries, Lysana explained. No one has done it in generations, but if you truly are Joran's descendant… Jacob took a deep breath and knelt at the water's edge. Guide me. Lysana knelt beside him, placing her hands over his around the stone. Focus on what you want to protect. Not just the springs, but the people. Our people. Our people, Jacob repeated, the phrase feeling right on his tongue. He closed his eyes and concentrated. The stone warmed between their joined hands, its pulse synchronizing with their heartbeats. Jacob felt Lysana's consciousness brush against his, an intimacy deeper than their physical connection had been. Together they reached toward the spring's ancient power. Suddenly, Jacob gasped as energy surged through him. In his mind's eye, he could see the entire village, the positions of every Navari warrior, and, most importantly, the Saurians approaching from both east and west in a pincer movement. They're coming from two directions, he said urgently, and Marin has disabled the western alarm sensors. Lysana's eyes widened. We need to warn them. There's no time, Jacob realized. But maybe. He focused on the Heartstone again, channeling its energy outward. A translucent barrier began to form around the springs, expanding slowly outward. It's working, Lysana exclaimed. The effort was tremendous. Sweat beaded on Jacob's forehead as he struggled to maintain the shield. I can't hold it long enough for the battle, he admitted through gritted teeth. You don't need to, Lysana said suddenly. You just need to hold it until… A horn blast cut through the air. The Saurians had been spotted. Simultaneously, a shout went up from the western perimeter as warriors discovered the sabotage sensors. They're coming, someone yelled. Jacob forced himself to his feet, still concentrating on maintaining the shield. We need to find Marin before he does more damage. As if summoned by his name, the commander appeared at the edge of the pool, a weapon in his hand pointed directly at them. The humans seized too much, Marin snarled. The Saurians promised me wealth beyond imagination for the spring's location. I won't let you ruin everything. You betrayed your own people, Lysana said, her voice tight with anger. For wealth? For recognition, Marin spat. 15 cycles serving your father, and still I'm passed over for advancement. The Saurians value competence. Jacob felt the shield weakening as his concentration split. He couldn't maintain it and deal with Marin simultaneously. The Heartstone chose me for a reason, Jacob said, stalling for time. It showed me the truth about our people's shared past. It could show you too. Marin laughed bitterly. Pretty stories for children. I deal in realities. Like the reality that you're surrounded, came Chief Kalen's voice from behind him. Marin spun to find Kalen and 3 warriors blocking his escape. In that moment of distraction, Jacob channeled a pulse of energy through the Heartstone. It struck Marin like a physical blow, sending him sprawling unconscious to the ground. How did you… Kalen began. No time, Jacob interrupted. The Saurians are attacking from both sides. The shield won't hold much longer. Kalen's expression hardened with resolve. Then we fight. Together. As battle cries erupted around the village, Jacob and Lysana exchanged a look of determination. Whatever came next, they would face it as one, just as their ancestors had intended all along. The clash of weapons and battle cries filled the air as Saurians poured into the village from both sides. The shield Jacob had managed to create was faltering, its translucent energy flickering like a dying flame. Navari warriors fought valiantly, but they were outnumbered and caught between two advancing forces. "We can't hold them off much longer," Chief Kellen shouted over the din, his ceremonial blades stained with the greenish blood of saurians. "They'll reach the spring soon." Jacob watched in horror as a group of reptilian warriors broke through the western defense line, their scaled bodies moving with predatory grace. The heartstone pulsed against his chest, almost painfully hot now, as if trying to communicate something urgent. "The river," Jacob said suddenly, the realization striking him like lightning. "That's it!" Lysana turned to him, her silver hair matted with sweat from the battle. "What about the river?" "It's where this all began. Where I helped Thorin cross. The springs in the river are connected. I can feel it through the stone." Jacob grabbed her hand. "We need to get there now." Kalen overheard them. "Whatever you're planning, do it quickly. We'll cover your retreat." Jacob and Lysana sprinted through the chaos of battle, dodging skirmishes and leaping over fallen debris. The Heartstone guided them, its pulse quickening as they approached the river that separated Navari land from human territory. When they reached the riverbank, Jacob was struck by how ordinary it looked. Just water flowing over stones, unaware of the momentous events its crossing had set in motion. "What now?" Lysana asked, breathless from their run. Jacob removed the Heartstone from around his neck. "The river divides our peoples, but it doesn't have to. It can connect us instead." He knelt at the water's edge. "This is where I helped your grandfather cross." A simple act of kindness that changed everything. Lysana knelt beside him, understanding dawning in her eyes. "The boundary that divides can also unite." "Exactly." Jacob extended his hand over the water, the Heartstone cradled in his palm. "The spring's power flows through the underground streams to feed this river. If we can channel that energy..." Lysana placed her hand over his, their fingers intertwining around the stone. Together then, as it was always meant to be. They closed their eyes, focusing on the connection between them. Human and Navari, once separated by misunderstanding and fear, now united by something stronger. The Heartstone began to glow with unprecedented brilliance, its light reflecting off the water's surface. Jacob felt the energy of the springs flowing through him, through Lysana, and into the river. The water began to glow with the same blue-green luminescence as the healing pools, the light spreading rapidly upstream and down. "It's working," Lysana whispered in awe. The glowing water surged suddenly, rising up in a massive wave that flowed not downriver, as nature would dictate, but back toward the village, toward the invading saurians. They ran after it, following the impossible upstream flow. When they reached the village, they found a scene of wonder and chaos. The luminous water had encircled the saurian forces, creating barriers that separated them from the Navari defenders. Where the water touched saurian skin, it left glowing marks that seemed to cause the reptilians intense discomfort. "The river remembers," Thorin said, appearing beside them, leaning heavily on his staff. "It remembers when the saurians poisoned its waters generations ago, driving our peoples apart with suspicion and fear." The saurian leader, a massive reptilian with elaborate armor, hissed in frustration as his forces were corralled by the living water. "This is impossible. No guardian has wielded such power in centuries." "No guardian has been both human and Navari in spirit," Thorin replied, nodding toward Jacob. "Until now." The battle ended not with bloodshed, but with surrender. The saurians, trapped by the river's judgment, laid down their weapons. Chief Kalen approached their leader with the dignity of a victor who chooses mercy over vengeance. "Return to your territories," he commanded, "and know that the springs and river are protected once more by the guardian and his mate." As the defeated saurians were escorted away, the village erupted in celebration. Warriors who had moments before faced death now embraced each other in relief and joy. The water receded, flowing back to the riverbed, its glow fading but not disappearing entirely. A reminder of the power that now watched over both human and Navari lands. Amid the celebration, Jacob found himself momentarily alone with Lysana by the central spring. The Heartstone had returned to its normal state, warm but no longer burning with power. "So," he said with a small smile, "I'm the guardian now." "You always were." she replied, stepping closer. "From the moment you helped my grandfather cross the river. That act of kindness revealed your true nature." Jacob took her hand, marveling at how natural it felt despite the difference in their skin, warm brown against cool blue. "And what about us? Your father called you my mate." Lizana's eyes sparkled with mischief and desire. "Among my people, when two souls join as ours did in the alcove, it is considered a bond more sacred than any ceremony could create." "Among my people," Jacob countered, pulling her closer, "we usually have a wedding first." She laughed, the sound like music. "Then we shall honor both traditions. A human ceremony for your people, a Navari bonding for mine." Their lips met in a kiss that seemed to make the springs glow brighter in response. When they parted, Jacob saw Chief Callan watching them with a mixture of resignation and approval. "It seems I have gained a human son," the chief said, approaching. "The council has confirmed your position as guardian, Jacob of Meridian? Or should I say, Jacob of the Navari now?" "Just Jacob," he replied. "Of both world." Callan nodded solemnly. "The river no longer divides us. Thanks to you, it now connects our peoples as it once did. Humans will be welcome in our territory again, and we in yours." Thorin hobbled forward, his amber eyes bright with satisfaction. When an orphan boy helps an old disabled elder cross a river, who could have predicted the tribe's response would change his life so completely? "Or change all our lives," Lizana added, squeezing Jacob's hand. That evening, as the twin moons rose over the healing springs, a celebration unlike any in living memory took place. Humans from Meridian, tentatively at first, then with growing confidence, crossed the river to join the festivities. Music and laughter filled the air as ancient prejudices began to dissolve in the face of shared joy. Jacob and Lizana stood on the riverbank where their journey had begun, watching as human children and Navari younglings splashed together in the shallows, already forgetting they were ever meant to be enemies. One simple act of kindness, Jacob mused, the heartstone glowing contentedly against his chest. That's all it took to change everything. "The simplest acts often have the most profound consequences," Lizana replied, resting her head on his shoulder, "just as the mightiest river begins with a single drop of water." Together they watched the future unfold before them. A future neither could have imagined when a human boy had helped an alien elder cross a river only days before. A future they would build together, one act of kindness at a time.